folks. Welcome to another episode of my workflow. Today, well, I didn't do this today, but I'm a big fan of Bloodborne and the entire Dark Souls universe. And, I really want to see, a movie or a cartoon or something made in that universe, because I absolutely think the lore and the aesthetic is beautiful. And I've only done one other piece of fan art in that regard. So this is my second attempt at drawing something from that universe. This is a hunter. I had a reference for this. I think in this video you might see me going back and forth over the web and looking at some references, some pictures of how the hunters are dressed, and trying to find one that specifically depicts a hunter in this pose. Not in this pose exactly, but that something similar, so that I could, properly define the hat, because those old, I think it's Victorian era hats, they're very kind of hard to draw from specific angles, and especially like looking down like this. So what do you see and what don't you see? What shows and what doesn't show? So anyway, you might see that. I'm not sure if it's in this video, but it's definitely in one of them. This is part one of, I believe, 3 parts, because for some reason I can't upload videos onto my channel that are longer than 15 minutes, or otherwise they're processing forever, whatever. Maybe that's just me and my limited technical skills, but we'll see as time goes on. Anyway, yeah, I'm a big fan of the hunters, and I really wanted to do something dynamic, a hunter with a dynamic pose. The weapons aren't exactly accurate, neither is the costume, but I think the illustration definitely embodies the feel of those characters. Generally, I'm a fan of the macabre. I love horror. I don't think there's enough horror action media out there. One that comes to mind that just probably started it all, or does it very well, is the Evil Dead series. Ash versus the Evil Dead, especially the third one. That's just a really great blend of action and horror, and not to mention comedy. Sam Raimi is a genius. I can't really think of any other movie or cartoon right now. Probably something will come to mind later on. But as you can see, this is me full on showing you how I often dwell on certain aspects of a piece, like trying to get the angles right. But this is bad practice, because you want to be in a certain state of flow when you're drawing, because that also comes out in the final product. The confidence of your lines shows in the final product. So if you're not feeling great, if you've been drawing for a while, you would know this, that your pieces often are indicative of your mood at the time. So what I often do is I do several practice drawings first, and that really gets me into the mood, into the flow, and it gets me loose. So feeling loose and confident in your work while you're working really shows in the final product. So anybody out there who's trying to become better at illustrating like I am, I strongly suggest doing a lot of sketches before you get to that place where your work starts to appear how you want it to, or like the stuff you like. Oh, my internet is finally back on. I haven't had internet all day. It's so weird when that happens. You feel like you're completely disconnected from the world, and God help us when all this goes down. And sorry to say when, but you imagine a time before the internet, Jesus Christ. There was a time in my life where I didn't keep a cell phone, and I was I believe the term is called a neo-Luddite, or someone who doesn't like technology. But I don't know, I was just rebelling for no reason. I don't know, but now I really can't do without it. Like when I woke up this morning and I had no internet, I was freaking out. And it just finally came on. So that's what, all morning, and currently it's 2:39 p.m. and finally I have some internet. Thank God for that. So here, once again, you're seeing me, you see my flaws, right? I'm constantly going over the same areas without improving it, right? Like right before I started going to this area here, you could see that I felt the wrist and the forearm was a little too thin. But as I go along, you see more confidence and more decisive strokes coming along. Lately, my style has been very sketchy, and that's been working for me. But this is coming out this way more with more clean, solid lines because I was once again thinking too hard about it because I really wanted to do the hunters justice, because I really like them, and I just kind of burdened myself. So, but anyway, this eventually turned out great because I know the future, or I did this a while ago, and I'm only just doing the voiceover now. Um, yeah. At some point, when I can get off my lazy bum, I will do some kind of fan fiction, some kind of animated short or animated series with these guys because I just love them. I just love them, and I think you can do something pretty lo-fi in regard to it wouldn't be too heavily written, and it would just emphasize the horror and the action. Something like a hunter just constantly going on missions and maybe with no story arc initially, but eventually developing one. But yeah, I definitely want to jump into this world a lot more. I absolutely love it. I'm a huge fan of Vati Vidya. I believe that's how you pronounce his name on YouTube. I'm a member of his Discord, and he just makes me love this whole world a lot more and more. So yeah, I would love to see something animated and just action-packed and gory with these guys in it. So once again, this is the first part of this workflow video. As we go along, you see my technique and how I achieve the final product. And personally, I find it very interesting. My style and my technique changes all the time, and I draw a lot. I'm always told that, on Discord and people who see me work that I churn drawings out. Like I draw so much, and I feel that's necessary if you want to achieve a level of professionalism, or just you want to get to a stage where drawing or illustrating becomes kind of a second language, right? Where you don't really have to think about it. So for a long time, I wasn't that great at anatomy, and I would often rely on some kind of self-proclaimed style to cover up my mistakes. But because I draw a lot and have been for a while now and studied anatomy, getting the initial figure of a character comes fairly easy to me, right? Getting a shape comes fairly easy to me. And that helps because then I can get into the nitty gritty, the details or characterization. Another important thing I feel is that after I developed my drawing skills, my draftsmanship, is posing. Posing is very important because you could be a great artist, but if your poses aren't dynamic, eye-catching, or interesting, or doesn't tell a story, it all kind of falls flat. So I highly suggest for all you out there trying to draw, trying to improve, who are into action, look at the things you love, look at the things that inspire you, use them as references, and look at the poses, look at what poses work. Stan Lee, there's a video out there with Stan Lee talking about the Marvel way, and he really emphasizes action, the action pose, how characters, stand, and this I took that in, and it's really important, and you could see this in the earlier works of Marvel by Jack Kirby. He's a god. He's just amazing, really, really amazing. Funny thing is, I really didn't like his style at first, Mr. Kirby, the Don, the King, but eventually I came to appreciate that. And that's also an interesting note with certain intellectual properties out there, or artists, or styles, or movies that you might not like at first, but eventually you come to love them the older you get. For example, for the longest time, I claimed to like 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, even though I really didn't. I just wanted to be part of the conversation and wanted to feel cool. But now I just can't get enough of that movie. That thing is unbelievable because it's not a regular movie per se, but more of an experience. That once again emphasizes the prowess of the late Stanley Kubrick. Like, he was a filmmaker like no other. He was on another level. Same with Blade Runner. I remember back in Nigeria when my older brother showed me Blade Runner. I was thinking about a movie titled Blade Runner. There was barely any action in it, and I really didn't. I didn't like it. But now, Jesus Christ! I remember one time I was at a friend's place staying over, and we were thinking of what to watch, and I was like, Blade Runner. And then they were like, okay, after we finished watching that, they were like, what do we watch next? And I was like, Blade Runner again. Like, I can't get enough of that. And it's unfortunate that Blade Runner 2049, the sequel to the 80s movie, isn't as successful as it should be. But I understand why, because it is really a slow movie, and you have to commit to it, and it kind of asks a lot of its audience. And for a movie that's supposed to be kind of a huge blockbuster, that's pretty demanding for the average moviegoer. So as we're going along here, the lines I'm illustrating, I'm trying to depict the shape of the character with as little lines as possible. There was a time where my drawings were just so detailed, and I was just so precious about my work. But eventually I realized the more you can do with little, the better. I'm a huge fan of Mike Mignola. He uses a lot of black. And what using a lot of black in your art does, and void, empty spaces, it really lets the viewer's imagination run wild. It lets the viewer's imagination partake in the process, to fill in the gaps. And that makes for a more engaging piece, I find. This is a pretty line-intensive piece of work, but yeah, it's coming out good so far. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for part 2. That should be on my channel somewhere, but please stick around. Thank you.